believe it works. Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. There we go, testing. Welcome everyone to this very important panel. It's called Climate Diplomacy and Energy Security in the New Era. Obviously, the climate crisis is one of the most important issues of our time. And I'm really honored to have an incredible and very impactful panel group here with us today to discuss this issue. Firstly, obviously, we have the Honorable Minister of Environment, Urbanization and Climate Change in Turkey, the Honorable Minister Murat Kurum. We also have next to him is Dr. Fatih Birol. He's Executive Director of the International Energy Agency. We have Mukhtar Babayev. He is Azerbaijan's Ecology and Natural Resources Minister, and of course he was the COP29 President. And finally, but not least, we have Mr. Selwyn Hart. He's Special Advisor to the UN Secretary General on Climate Action and Just Transition. We are starting quite late, as you know, so we will just get straight into it. We may not have time for questions at the end, but we will try our best. Firstly, Honorable Minister Kurum, thank you so much for being here. We know you're a very busy man. With the increasing impacts of climate change, cities are experiencing floods, heat waves, and droughts. Could you tell us about the measures Turkey is taking to address these very serious challenges?
Evet. Çok teşekkür ediyorum.
Thank you very much.
Yani tabii iklim değişikliği bugün tüm dünyanın
Climate change is
başlı başına bir problem.
a problem in itself. Climate change is a global problem, and Turkey is one of the countries that is impacted the most of the climate change issue. Of course, we're not only looking at this in terms of floods and other disasters, we look at this as an integral issue. First of all, I would like to
dinleyicilerimizi saygıyla, hürmetle
say welcome to our panelists and audience today. Welcome to Antalya.
Tabii şu sözlerle de aslında ortak evimiz dünyanın geleceğine dair
I would like to talk about our common future.
Aslında durumu ifade etmek adına başlamak istiyorum. Doğada
in nature,
kendisi için yaşamaz.
Nothing lives for itself alone. Rivers quench no thirst.
Ağaçlar
they own.
Kendi meyvesini
Trees taste
yiyemez.
not the fruits.
Güneş hiçbir zaman kendisi
The
için
sun no
parlamaz.
warmth for self has known.
Ay
The moon
yine
for
aynı
its
şekilde
own sake
aydınlatmaz.
has never shone.
Çiçekler
Flowers,
kendisi
their
için
fragrance for
kokmaz.
themselves have never thrown.
Toprak kendisi için
Earth for its
doğurmaz.
own needs has never
Rüzgar
sown. Wind for its
kendisi
own
için
breath has never
esmez.
blown.
Ve
For nature's
aslına
law, a
bakarsanız
truth
işte
profound.
doğanın anayasasındaki ilk madde şudur.
The first article of
şey
the nature's
birbiri için
constitution is that everything lives for each other.
Birbiri için o yaşam döngüsü içerisinde
And
birbirine
all
destek
things
olur.
Support each other
İşte
in
bizler
that
de
life
sadece
cycle.
aslına bakarsanız
So,
kendimiz için değil,
let us
tüm
strive
insanlık için
with hearts so
çalışmak
free, not
durumundayız.
just for self,
Biz
but
de
humanity.
iklim penceresini aslında
So this
bu
is
bakış
our
açısıyla
perspective on the climate
bakıyoruz.
issue.
Tüm insanlıkla, tüm
We
dünyayla
would like to cooperate
işbirliği
with
ve
all
hedef
humanity
birliği
and with the whole
bağlamında
world
iklim değişikliğiyle mücadele ediyoruz.
and fight against
Tabii
climate change.
şunu da hemen söylemeliyiz.
I should
Türkiye
also
olarak
say
şu
that
anda
as Turkey,
dünyanın yaşadığı bu iklim krizinden
we are
etkilendiğimizi az
also
önce
impacted by the
ifade
climate
ettim.
crisis
Akdeniz
that the world is
havzasında yer
going through.
almamız da
The fact that
bu
we are in the
manada
Mediterranean
bizi
basin also
derinden
affects
etkileyen
us
bir
deeply.
durum. Afetlerin sayısı, sıklığı,
The number of
şiddetine baktığımızda her
disasters
geçen
and the
gün de
frequency
arttığını
of disasters increase day by
görüyoruz.
day.
İbn Haldun coğrafya
Ibn
kaderdir
Haldun
diyor.
said that geography is
Aslında
destiny.
çok bir isabetli bir cümle
And it is
kurduğunu
actually a very
burada
valid
yaşayarak
phrase that he
görüyoruz.
has mentioned.
Kader olduğu
We live
gerçeğini
this.
de aslında
We live this
bize
through, and
hatırlatan,
we
Antalya'dayız.
witness.
Yakın bir örnek
We are
vermek
in
istiyorum.
Antalya here today, which
Şu anda
reminds us
içinde
of that
bulunduğumuz
reality.
Antalya'mız
I would
birkaç
like to
yıl
give you an
önce
example. A few years
tarihin,
ago,
Cumhuriyet tarihimizin
Antalya
en büyük orman yangınlarından birine
had gone
şahitlik
through,
etti.
had
Ve
witnessed
burada
one of the biggest
ormanlarımız, köylerimiz, bu
wildfires
köylerde yaşayan
in
vatandaşlarımız
history, and
zarar gördü.
villagers, our
Can
citizens
verdi
were
hayvanlarımız,
harmed, and our
bitkilerimiz, buradaki ekolojimiz
animals and the
etkilendi.
ecology
Ve
died,
yangın
and they were
rüzgarla
harmed.
birlikte de
And also with the wind,
birçok yerleşim alanına ulaştı.
the
Bilim
wildfires reached
insanlarımız da
many
uzmanlarımız da
settlements.
aslında bu yangının
And the
sebeplerine
scientists
dair araştırmalar
also
yaptık
carried
ve
out,
sonucu oldu.
conducted a
İklim
research
değişikliğinden
as
kaynaklı
to the reason
oluşan
for this
aşırı
wildfire,
hava olayları,
and the reason
sıcaklık
was the
yükselişi
extreme
ve
weather
yine burada
conditions
sertliği
and
giderek artan
extreme
rüzgarlar
temperatures,
sebebiyle
and also
yangının
increasing
büyüdüğünü
severe
tespit
winds.
ettik. Bakın biz Ankara'dan geliyoruz. Dün Ankara'da
We come from
Nisan
Ankara.
ayının ortasında
Yesterday,
10
in
santimetre
mid-April in
ulaşan
Ankara,
bir kar
there
yağışı
was
oldu.
a snowfall
Öyle gelip geçmedi. Gün
up
boyunca
to 10
gerçekten
centimeters,
Ankara'yı etkiledi.
and it
Hem
actually
soğuğu
affected
arttırdı hem de
Ankara throughout the
yağış
day. It
tüm
increased
gücüyle devam etti.
it decreased the weather
Artık bitkiler
temperature,
bile iklim
and right
değişikliğine
now
uyumlu yaşamak zorunda.
even the plants
Yaşayamasa
have
eğer
to
etkileniyor.
adapt
İşte
to the
bugün,
climate change. If not, they will not
çiftçilerimizin
survive.
don sebebiyle etkilendiği,
For example, our
bu
farmers
bölgede de,
also
dondan
were impacted
etkilenen
because of this
çiftçilerimiz var.
extreme
Dolayısıyla
cold
üretimi
weather.
bile artık iklim
So
değişikliğine
the
uyumlu hale
production
getirmek
must be
zorundasınız.
adapted to the
Tedbir almak
climate
zorundasınız.
change. Yeah, we have to take certain
Şimdi bu iki
precautions for
olaydan
that.
hareketle Türkiye aslında
And
coğrafi
based on these
kırılganlığını da
two
düşünerek hangi ülke
events,
ne yapıyor?
we
Hangi
have to
ülkenin ne
also
hedefi
look
var?
at countries and to
Ne
see
yapmıyor
what their
demeden
goals are. And
iklim değişikliğiyle mücadele etmeye gayret
and
gösteriyor.
we are trying to fight
Tabii,
against
bunun
climate
içinde
change.
ilk şart hiç şüphesiz kararlı bir
And the
yönetim, kararlı
first
bir duruş.
condition on this is to
Bu
have a
kapsamda
decisive position
Sayın
against this.
Cumhurbaşkanımız gerçekten bu
Our
kararlılığı tüm dünyaya
President of
ilan
the
ettiler.
Republic
Biz
announced
Türkiye olarak
the
sorunlara
decisions that we have taken
gözlerini
in that
kapatan değil,
regard.
doğrudan
As Turkey,
çözüme
we are not
odaklanan,
closing our eyes on this
ve
issue.
kendi
We are
çözümleriyle,
focusing on the direct
yine,
solutions.
Yerelde ve ulusalda
And both in national and
mücadele eden bir
international
ülke
arena, we
olmaya
would like
gayret
to be a
gösteriyoruz.
country that
Tüm
will be
sorunlarla
active in
olduğu
fighting
gibi
against
iklim
this issue.
kriziyle de
And
çözüme odaklanıyoruz.
we focus on the
Türkiye'nin,
solution just like in
gençliğimizin,
other crises.
geleceğimizin çıkarlarını
We are
düşünen
trying
ve
to
gözeten
protect
yeni kazanımlar elde etmeye çalışıyoruz. Buradaki mücadele aslında tamamen
gains of our
ülkemizin geleceğine dair
generations,
bir
future
mücadele. Yapmış
generations.
olduğumuz mücadele.
And
Bildiğiniz gibi Paris
as you
Anlaşması'nı
may know,
7 Ekim
we
2021
have approved
tarihinde
the Paris Agreement
onayladık
on
ve
the 7th of
bu
October
kapsamda
2021.
şunun altını
And
tabii çizerek
I would
ifade
like
etmek
to
gerekirse
reiterate that
bu onay sürecinde
the
çok ciddi, kıran kırana
approvals
bir diplomasi süreci
processes
yürüttük. Yani gerek
was had undergone a diplomacy period with
ülkemizin
the
menfaatlerini elde
authorities,
edebilmek
with other
adına
authorities,
bu
and
diplomasi sürecini yürüttük
we
ve belli
conducted this
kazanımlar da elde ettik.
diplomatic
Tabii burada
processes.
Paris Anlaşması'na taraf olurken şunu da
While
ifade
we
etmem
were the
gerekirse
signatory, one of the
ülkemizin
signatories of
büyümesine
Paris
halel
Agreement,
getirmeyecek
we
şartla
also
imzaladık. Bu ne
signed
demektir? Yani
it
ülkenin ekonomisine,
on the condition
istihdamına,
that it would
üretimine,
not
geleceğine dair bir tehdit
affect our
oluşturmaması
country negatively. The
amacıyla
fact that it would not
bu
threaten our
sözleşmeyi
country. So
imzalamış olduk.
we have
Bunu da
signed this
bir taraftan
agreement
da bu
based
gerçeği
on
kabul
these
ediyoruz.
conditions.
Yani
But on the
iklim
other hand,
değişikliğiyle mücadele etmek
we
zorundayız.
say that we are
İklimin değiştiğini az önce
are
verdiğim
accepting this
örnekte de
reality and that we have to
örneklerde
fight
de
against
aslında
climate change.
yaşayarak görüyoruz
And
ki
we are going
sadece
through, we are witnessing this
Antalya'daki,
reality
Muğla'daki orman yangınları
through
değil, son yıllara
disasters, not
baktığımızda,
only the wildfires that happened in Antalya,
Rize'de,
but
Trabzon'da,
also in Rize, Trabzon, and
büyük
in
sel felaketleri
Kastamonu.
yaşadık. Büyük
There
orman
were huge
yangınları yaşadık.
floods and also
Dolayısıyla bu
wildfires.
mücadeleyi
So
topyekün
therefore
vermek
we are
durumundayız.
going to fight
Tabii
against
sonuç olarak
this
bu anlaşmayı
together.
imzalarken Türkiye'nin
While
sanayide,
signing this
enerjide ve birçok
agreement,
sektörde yaşadığı
Turkey
ilerlemeyi
also
bu
considered
manada
the advancements in
engelleyen değil,
many industries.
aksine
It
destekleyen
also wanted
bir
to be
stratejiyle
a country
imza altına
with a
aldık.
strategy
Tabii
that would
Türkiye'deki
support the
yeni
industries
teknolojilerin
within this
üretimi,
agreement.
buradaki know-how
New
gücümüzün
technology production,
yine
our know-how,
yükselmesini, yeni iş
increase of
alanlarının
our
gençlerimiz
know-how
için,
and
ben hep
also
söylüyorum gençlerimizle bir
creating
araya
of
geldiğimizde,
new
artık her meslek
employment for
dalını
young
ilgilendiriyor.
people. I
Avukatını,
talk to
doktorunu,
young people and I tell them, whether they
çiftçisini,
are lawyers,
mühendisini,
doctors,
mimarını,
or
tüm
farmers, or
sektörleri
architects.
ilgilendiren
This
bir
is an
durumla
issue
karşı
that
karşıyayız. O yüzden
considers that
gençlerimize de
that
hep şunu öğütlüyoruz.
considers
Mesleğinizle
all
alakalı
of
iklim
the
değişikliğini
professional
hep dikkate alın. Hep
professions.
gözetin.
So I always
Ve
tell
bu
the young people that
çerçevede
they should be
yeni
aware of
mesleklerin
it.
gelişimini ve
And
Avrupa
we
ile olan
also try to
ticari
support
gücümüzün
the
artırılması
compulsion of
hedefini de
new
ortaya koyduk.
professions,
Ve
and
en önemlisi de yeni
we
ve
are trying to also
daha ucuz enerji kaynaklarını
go
arttırmayı
parallel
hedefliyoruz.
hand in hand with
Tabii
Europe, and we are
biz
trying to
Sayın
increase
Cumhurbaşkanımızın liderliğinde
the energy
Türkiye yüzyılına
resources.
ilerleyen ülkemizi
With
büyütme
the leadership
hedefindeyiz.
of our president,
Çocuklarımıza da
we are
ortak
advancing in
evimiz
the
dünyamıza da inşallah hep birlikte hizmet edeceğiz.
100th
Tabii
anniversary,
Türkiye bu yeşil
anniversary
ve
of
geleceği
Turkey,
koruyan
and
büyüme
Turkey
sürecini nasıl
has
yönetiyor?
this
Ne
growth
var
strategy
yani bu
that
sürecin
protects
içerisinde?
the green.
Bildiğiniz
So
gibi
what
Sayın
kind of processes
Cumhurbaşkanımız
are we talking
2053
about? As you
yılına
may know,
ilişkin
our president
Birleşmiş Milletler Genel Kurulu'nda daha
talked
adil bir
in the
dünya
UN
mümkündür
General Assembly,
anlayışıyla
and he said that a
tüm
fairer
dünyaya
world is
ülkemizin
possible
hedeflerini, projelerini paylaştılar.
until
Türkiye'nin
2053,
bu
and
manada
he
hiçbir
shared
tarihi sorumluluğu olmamasına
Turkey's
rağmen burayı
projects.
da
Even
altını
though
çizerek
Turkey does
ifade
not
etmek
have
gerekirse,
any
yani
historic
dünyayı kirleten ülkeler
responsibility,
arasında Türkiye
meaning
yoktur.
that
En az
even though Turkey
kirleten,
is not among
en
the
az zarar veren
countries that
ülkelerden biri olmamıza
harms
rağmen
the world, that is
bu
not among the
kapsamda tarihi bir
countries that
sorumluluğu alarak gelecek
that is
nesillerimiz
the reason
adına
for
bu
this
kararı
issue.
verdik.
We still have
Biz de
decided
ilgili tüm bakanlıklarımızla birlikte bu
on
işin
this
koordinasyonu
issue,
yürüten
and
bakanlığız. Yani
we
Çevre
are the
Şehir'den
ministry that
sorumlu, iklim
coordinates
değişikliğinden sorumlu
all
bir
of
bakanlık
these
olarak
issues
bu koordinasyonu
as
yürütüyoruz.
the
Bu yol haritasıyla birlikte
urban
aslında
and
Türk ekonomi sisteminin
energy
döngüsel
ministry.
ekonomiye
On the
geçişini
other hand,
sağlayacağız.
we
Ne
are going
yapacağız?
to
Yani burada bir
transition
fırsat
into
var.
circular economy.
Önümüzdeki
There is an
50 yıl
opportunity
içerisinde
here,
tüm dünya
and in the
bu
coming
ekonomi
50
sistemine
years,
dönecek.
all
İstese de dönecek,
countries in
istemese
the
de
whole
dönecek.
world, they will have to
Bazı ülkeler
transition into
farklı
circular
tutum ve
and
davranışlar
green economy.
sergileyebilir. Ama
Of course, today
gelinen süreçte
some countries
önümüzde
may act
bu sorunu
differently, but I
yaşayacağımız
think that
aşikar. Zaten
we will all go
fiilen
through the
yaşıyoruz.
same problems in the
Dolayısıyla
future.
bunu bir
We
fırsat
already
olarak
do anyway.
değerlendirip
So
döngüsel
we have to
ekonomiye
seize this
geçişi
opportunity and
sağlayacağız ve
transit into
bu
circular
sayede de
economy,
aslında Türk firmalarının,
and
Türk
this
sanayisinin,
way
Türk
the Turkish
üretiminin yeşil
industry, the
finansmana
Turkish
bugün
companies
baktığınızda
will receive green
tüm dünyada
finance.
yeşil finansmanla
In the
ilgili
whole
artık
world
yeni
right
fonların
now, there are
oluşturulduğu
new
ki
funds
birazdan
for
COP
green
başkanımız
finance, and
aktaracaktır.
I'm
En
sure
son
that
COP29 Azerbaycan'da Bakü'de
COP
düzenlenen
president will talk
COP'ta
about that. In the
300
recent
milyar
COP
bu
meeting in
manada destek
Azerbaijan,
verilmesi
we
kararı
decided that
alındı
there would be a
ki
$300
bu
billion
finansmana
of
erişmek istiyorsanız da
financing. So if you
sizin
want
de
to
iklim
reach
değişikliğiyle
this,
mücadelenizi,
if you want to have an
teknolojinizi
access to this
geliştirmeniz
financing, then you will
gerekiyor.
have to develop your
Ve yeni ve yenilikçi,
infrastructure and
temiz bir
technology.
enerji arzını
we
sağlayacağız. Bu da
will
çok
create a
önemli.
new clean
Yine
energy supply, which is
sürdürülebilir
very important. We
ulaşımı,
will also
mikromobiliteyi önceliklendiren
have micro
akıllı
mobility
ulaşımı tüm
and
şehirlerimize
also smart
yaygınlaştıracağız. Bugün
transportation
Antalya'da da,
in all of our cities.
Şırnak'ta da,
Today in
Hatay'da da
Antalya,
akıllı
Şırnak and
ulaşımı bir
Hatay,
strateji dahilinde
we
inşallah
are implementing smart
uygulayacağız ve iklim
transportation
diplomasisinde de
policies.
çok daha
And
aktif bir
in
şekilde rol
climate
almak
diplomacy,
istiyoruz.
we
Tabii
would like to take
eylem
active
planlarımızı
part.
ortaya koyduk. Hem
We
kısa
have
vadede
certain
hem uzun
action
vadede
plans,
eylem
both
planlarımızı
short and
ortaya
long-term
koyarak bu
action plans.
sürece nasıl
And we will
katkı
try to see how we
verebileceğimizi
can contribute
ilgili
to these
paydaşlarımızla,
processes
bilim insanlarımızla birlikte çalıştık
together
ve
with our
2024-30
scientists.
yıllarına
And
ilişkin bir eylem planı
we
kısa
have
vadede
created
ortaya
a
koyduk. Bir de uzun vadeli
2030 action
eylem
plan.
planlarımız var. Bu kapsamda da
And
ulusal
we also
katkı
have
beyanımız
long-term action
ki
plans.
her ülkenin bu
Every
manada
country
beyanları var. Biz de
has
beyanımızı
their own
hazırladık ve
declarations, and
tüm
we have also
dünyaya ilan
prepared our
ettik.
declaration, and we have announced it to the
Tabii
whole
bir taraftan
world. On
emisyonu
one
düşürmek
side,
için
we are trying to
mücadele ediyoruz.
decrease
Yani
the
var olan
emissions,
emisyonu düşürmek için
the existing
tüm
emission
sektörlerde yani yapım
in all
sektöründe,
industries, whether it's
sanayi sektöründe, tarım
construction
sektöründe,
or
ulaşım sektöründe
in the-
emisyonu düşürecek
or,
adımlar atıyoruz.
industry
Bunları ilgili
or,
bakanlıklarımızla belirlediğimiz
or
hedefler doğrultusunda atmaya
agricultural
çalışıyoruz.
industry,
Bir
so we're
taraftan
trying
da
to
var
take the
olan
necessary
emisyonların
steps. On the other hand, we
tüketimi
are
için
trying to
yutak alanlarımızın sayısını, miktarını arttırıyoruz. Yeşil alanlarımızı, doğal
increase
koruma
the number of
alanlarımızı
green areas
hem
in
koruyor
order
hem
to
de
decrease the
sayısını,
current
miktarını arttırmaya
emissions.
çalışıyoruz
We're
ki
trying to
bu
protect it
kapsamda
and also
yine
increase the number of
81
these
ilimizde
areas.
millet
In
bahçeleri projemiz
81
var. Millet
cities we
bahçeleriyle
have
birlikte yeşil alan miktarını
we have
arttırıyoruz.
parks,
Tabii
national parks.
orman varlığımız ki bu
And,
konuda da gerçekten Tarım
Our
Orman Bakanlığımız
presence,
çok
our
güzel bir
forestry
mücadele veriyor.
presence is quite
Orman
important here. The
varlığımızı
Ministry of
arttırmak adına
Forestry
da
is also working in
yine
that
bu
regard.
çalışmaları yürütüyoruz. Yine tasarrufu önceliklendiren
And on
enerji
the other hand, we have a
verimli
policy
yeşil binaların dönüşümü
that
bizim için çok çok önemli. Yani
protects
ülkemiz bir taraftan da
energy
afet ve
efficiency.
deprem ülkesi. Yani
So we
deprem
live in
kuşağında
an
yaşıyoruz.
earthquake zone.
11 ilinde yaşadığımız depremi, 6
There
Şubat'taki
has
asıl
been an
felaketini hepimiz çok iyi
earthquake
biliyoruz.
2
11
years ago
ilimizdeki
that
yapmış
happened
olduğumuz
in
500
11
bin
cities at the
konutumuz
same
ki şu an
time.
fiilen 11 ilde devam
And
ediyor.
we
Bu konutları da
continue
tamamını
to construct
iklime dirençli ve sıfır atık
climate
uyumlu olarak
resilient
inşa ediyoruz. Bu da
and
çok
earthquake
önemli.
resilient
Yine
housings
deprem
in
dönüşümü
these
dışında
cities.
kentsel
On
dönüşüm
the other hand, we
projelerimizi
also
de
have urban
bu
transformation
çerçevede
projects,
yapmaya çalışıyoruz.
will continue.
Diğer taraftan
On
tarım
the
ve
other
gıda
hand,
güvenliği çok önemli.
agricultural
Ve
and
burada
food
doğal tohum,
security is very
nitelikli
important.
hayvancılık
Natural
uygulamaları
seeds and
gibi
also
iklim
qualitative
dostu çalışmaları
husbandry are
yaygınlaştırmak
important to us,
hedefimiz.
and our
Bilhassa
mission is to increase
geleceğin
these kind of
en önemli kaynağı olacak.
applications.
Belki
and
uğruna bile savaşların verildiği suyu ve su kaynaklarını
we have to protect
korumak,
our natural
arttırmak ve en
resources,
verimli
which
şekilde
are likely to
kullanmak
be a
üzere
reason for
çalışmalar
war.
yürütüyoruz.
So
Yine 2017 yılında
in
başlattığımız bir
2017, we
projemiz
have
var.
also
Sıfır atık
started
projemiz.
a
Sayın
zero
Emine
waste
Erdoğan hanımefendinin
project
himayelerinde başlattığımız
with the
bugün
leadership
artık
of First
7 yılda
Lady
7
Emine
kıtaya
Erdoğan.
iz bırakan, Birleşmiş
And
Milletler nezdinde 30 Mart'ın sıfır atık günü ilan edildiği ki
30th
geçtiğimiz günlerde
of
oraya gittik.
March
Birleşmiş Milletler
was
Genel
declared
Sekreterimizle
as
birlikte
the Net
sıfır atık
Zero
gününü
Waste
genel kurulda
Day, and
hanımefendinin katılımıyla
during
oradaki
the
tüm
United
ülkelerin
Nations
katılımıyla
Zero
birlikte
Waste
kutlamış
Day,
olduk ve bu projemizi de diğer
First Lady
ülkelerle
Emine Erdoğan attended,
paylaştık. Tabii bu projede
this,
kazanım
event,
miktarımıza
and
baktığımızda
when
%35 kazanımdayız.
look at
Hedefimiz
saving here,
%60'a
we
gelmek
save around
ki bunun içinde
35%.
depozito
Our
uygulamasını
mission
önemsiyoruz.
is to increase to
İnşallah
60%, and we
Sakarya'dan
are
başlamak üzere bu yıl
planning
içerisinde
to
tüm ülke
implement a
geneline
deposit management
yaygınlaştıracağımız ve
system. We will
2026
start this in
yılında
Sakarya,
artık zorunlu
and
hale
in 2026
gelecek
we're going to
depozito
make
uygulama
this
sistemiyle
deposit management
atıklarımızı
system
dönüştüreceğiz.
obligatory
Yani bu atıkların
system.
hepsi artık
So we're going to
burada gördüğünüz
transform our waste
barkodlarla birlikte
thanks to this
depozito
system.
iade makinelerine,
As you
iade
can
noktalarına
see,
gidecek ve
people
oradan
will be able to go to these
vatandaşlarımız maddi
machines
anlamda kazanım sağlayacaklar. Bir taraftan da
and
bu aldığımız
dump their
ürünlerle
waste
birlikte
and also earn money for
ekonomimize,
that.
istihdamımıza ve belli
Gain their money
sektörlere
back.
ilişkin
So on the other hand,
desteklerimizi
we will
arttırmış
also
olacağız. Bu da çok çok
increase our
önemli.
support
Yani
to the
hiçbir
industries.
kaynak sonsuz değil.
So no resource is
Havamızın, suyumuzun,
forever.
güneşimizin sonsuz
The air,
olmadığı gibi
the
bu
sun
ham
is not
maddelerimize de
forever. It's not going
sonsuz
to last
olmadığı bilinci ve
forever. So we
yaklaşımıyla
have to know,
hareket ediyoruz.
we have to act
İnşallah
accordingly. And hopefully,
bu anlattığım tüm çalışmaları destekleyecek
all of
iklim
these
kanunumuz
projects
hazırladık.
that is
İlgili
backed
tüm
by our
bakanlıklarımızla,
climate
onların
law
fikirleriyle,
has been
onların
drawn up.
görüşleriyle birlikte
And
taslağımızı meclisimize gönderdik.
we have sent
İnşallah
this to the parliament,
çok yakın bir
and
zamanda bu ay
hopefully
içerisinde
during this month
yasalaşmasını
it will
bekliyoruz
pass.
ve yapmış olduğumuz tüm bu faaliyetlere
And
de aslında
all of
yasal
the
bir
things that we
dayanak,
have
yasal
done
bir
so
zemin
far will be
hazırlamış
based on
olacağız.
a legal
Tabii uzun dönemli hedeflerimiz
infrastructure.
var.
We
Uzun
have
dönemli
long-term
hedeflerimiz
targets.
içerisinde
within
2035
these targets,
yılına kadar da
we
rüzgar ve
plan
güneş enerji
to
kapasitemizi şu an
increase solar and
olan
wind
kapasitenin
capacity
tam
by
4 kat üzerine
2035. So we're
çıkaracağız.
going to increase
Enerji
it
Bakanlığımız, ilgili
by 4
birimlerimiz bu
times.
konuda
So the
yoğun
Ministry
bir
of Energy
çalışma
is also working
sarf
on this
ediyorlar.
issue.
Yine 2053 yılına
By
kadar
2053,
yenilenebilir enerjinin
the
birincil
share
enerjideki
of
payını
renewable energy in
%50'ye.
primary energy will be
Yani bu da
raised
çok
to
çok önemli. Yani
50%.
yenilenebilir enerji dediğimiz
Which
işte
is very important
rüzgarımızı,
too. We're talking
suyumuzu,
about, wind and
havamızı
water and air
kullanacağımız,
energy.
bu
here.
manada yenilenebilir enerji miktarını arttıracağımız bir hedefi ortaya koyduk. Yine
And by
sanayi sektöründe
2053,
emisyon azaltım
a
hedeflerimiz var.
75% reduction in
2053'e kadar
industrial emissions
%75
will also be
oranında emisyon
achieved.
azaltımı hedefliyoruz. Tüm bu hedefler doğrultusunda
And
aslında
in all of
amacımız
these
gençlerimize
all of this,
bizim gerçekten pırıl pırıl,
missions, all of
gözleri
these
parlayan hep
targets,
söylüyorum.
we also
Daha
want
iyisini, daha
our
güzelini yapacak
children, our
gençlerimize
young
çok daha
people
güzel bir ülke bırakmak.
to be a
İnşallah
part of it, and our
kararlılıkla
mission
bu
here
adımları
is to leave
atacağız
them a great
ve yeşil
world,
kalkınma devrimini
and we will
gerçekleştiren ve bu konuda liderlik eden bir ülke
be
olmak istiyoruz.
a
Liderlik
leader
etmek de
in
çok
terms
önemli.
of creating
Doğa
this
ve
green
insan kardeşliğini
revolution.
benim sadık
And
yarim kara topraktır diyerek ifade eden
I would like to
Aşık Veysel'in
end my words with
izinden,
Aşık
dilinden
Veysel.
yürümeye devam
Aşık Veysel
edeceğiz.
called the faithful companion of mine
Yaradılanı
is the
severiz,
black
Yaradan'dan
soil.
ötürü diyen
And
Yunus
Yunus Emre,
Emre'nin
we love all
dilinden
beings for the sake of the
hepimize
Creator.
muhtaç olan Yunus'un sözünü tutmaya devam
We
edeceğiz.
should not forget
Tüm
these
bunları
sayings.
yaparken
While doing
Gazze'deki
so,
soykırıma
while
sessiz
doing so,
kalmayacağız.
we're not going to
Dünyadaki tüm
stay silent
mazlumlara el uzatmaya
against
devam
the
edeceğiz.
genocide in
İsrail
Gaza.
vahşetini
We
her
are
ortamda
going to
anlatmaya devam
talk about
edeceğiz. Ve
Israelis
haksızlıklara karşı susmayan,
violence
her
everywhere,
zaman
and we're always
ülkemizin,
going to
gençlerimizin
talk about the
menfaatini savunan
inequalities
ve
everywhere,
mazluma
about
el
the
uzatan
inequalities everywhere in
ülke
the
olmaya
world.
Türkiye
We're
devam
always,
edecektir.
as Turkey, going
Ben
to
bu duygularla
continue to
gerçekten
voice
Antalya
the
diplomasi
people,
forumuna
to be the
katılan, destek
people's
veren
voice. So I would like to once
her bir
again thank
katılımcıya
each and every one of you for
Başta Sayın
participating.
Cumhurbaşkanımız olmak üzere
So I would like to first of
Dışişleri
all thank
Bakanlığımıza,
our
Dışişleri
President
Bakanımıza,
and the Minister of
bakanlık
Foreign Affairs,
personelimize yine bu
the
forumu düzenlediği için
also
çok teşekkür
personnel, the
ediyorum.
staff
Tekrar
of the ministry, and I
misafirlerimize
would
de
like to once
hoş
again
geldiniz, sefalar
welcome our
getirdiniz.
guests. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Minister Kurum. You've laid out quite well the problems we face, not just locally in Turkey, but on a global stage. As you mentioned, we all go through the same problems. So I'm going to go straight to Dr. Birol. Multilateralism, as we know, has long been the backbone of global climate cooperation, but it's not what it used to be. There are trust gaps, and they persist around climate finance, equity, and accountability. So here's the question. In your view, can multilateralism and diplomacy still work when major players opt out?
Teşekkürler.
Well, thank you so much.
Öncelikle
First of all,
Sayın Bakan'a,
I'd like to
Dışişleri
thank
Bakanı,
Mr.
Bakan Yardımcısına,
Minister and
ve
Deputy
bütün
Minister of
hükümete
Foreign
teşekkür
Affairs,
ediyorum
and I'd
beni
like to
davet
thank
ettikleri
all the
için bu
government
önemli
representatives
foruma.
for their invitation to this very important
Sayın
forum.
Bakan ve
And as Mr.
Babayev izin
Minister
verirse ben İngilizce
and
olarak
Babayev,
devam
if they allow me,
edeyim.
I'd like to continue in English
Konuşma.
because this is official language in this forum.
First of all, I really enjoy the comprehensive speech of Mr. Minister. Gave us a very good view of where energy, climate, and humanitarian values interplay. How do they interplay? What is Turkey's plan here? And what are the sensitive points for the Republic of Turkey? So congratulations, Mr. Minister. Thank you for that. I also wanted to congratulate Mr. Babayev. COP29 took place under very difficult circumstances, and you were an excellent host with very good outcomes. As I mentioned also, President Aliyev, the Azerbaijan's view around the world changed considerably after the successful COP29. And also, finally, I want to tell my dear friend Selvin Hart, we are, I believe, as a citizen of this world, so fortunate to have a Secretary General like Antonio Guterres. He is a real climate leader. He is a real humanitarian leader. He pays attention to every single person living in this planet. We are so fortunate to have such a wonderful leader. I am talking about energy, climate, but also beyond. And also thank you very much, Selvin, being his right-arm man for pushing the climate and energy agenda. So, dear colleagues, I want to mention three things to you very openly. First, is the climate diplomacy, climate change, is it still as topical as it was a few years ago, where it is in the international affairs? This is number one. Number two, I would like to tell you very briefly, where is the clean energy transition going? Is it going somewhere else or not? And third, again, very briefly, a big discussion. It was in Davos, it was in all the summits. Energy security and climate change, are they in contradiction or not? So I want to mention these 3 points. First, very openly, I talk with all world leaders around the world, from Japan to Americas, Europe, Asia, Africa. I can tell you that, unfortunately, as far as the climate change is concerned, its importance, its significance in the international affairs is sliding down. It is not as topical, as urgent for many governments as they were some time ago. And this is happening at a time when the climate crisis goes from bad to worse. The number of extreme weather events is increasing. They are becoming much more frequent, and when they happen, they are becoming much more intense in terms of wildfires, as Mr. Minister mentioned, in terms of floods, droughts everywhere. So there is a major contradiction between the weakening of the interest in climate diplomacy, climate change, and what is happening in our planet. This is a major problem. And this should be tackled at international level. This should be addressed at international level, but lots of efforts are needed. And again, I turn here to United Nations. I'm sure Mr. Secretary General and his team will do their best to lift the climate change issue at a point in the international agenda as it deserves. This is the number one. So if I finish, the wind is not blowing in the right direction in terms of climate change today. Sad but true. Second, where are we with the clean energy transition? With the losing interest of governments, some governments around the world, is the clean energy transition going to go down? My answer is, I do not think so. And the numbers don't show it. I give a couple of numbers. I am very sorry, I am a man of numbers, and I give you a couple of numbers. Last year, in the entire world, many new electricity power plants have been installed, built, started to operation. 85% of all new power plants in the world were renewables, solar and wind. 85%. 5% nuclear power, and 10% gas and coal. Electric cars, dear colleagues, only 4 years ago, of all the cars sold in the world, 3% of all the cars sold in the world was electric, 3%. And this year, 25% of all the cars sold in the world are electric. So 1 out of 4 cars sold is electric. Why? Because they are getting cheaper. Batteries, which is a very important technology. We need batteries for cars, for renewables, for everything. Their costs are coming down substantially. So, the reason, dear colleagues, why the lack of strong interest in climate change will not stop the clean energy is because clean energy is mainly driven by economics, because they are getting cheaper. electric cars, they are getting cheaper. Plus, many countries think tomorrow's industry, tomorrow's economy will be depending on the modern technologies, not yesterday's technologies. So they are investing in those. When I look around the world, 85% of power plants being renewables, I do not think that their main reason to build solar power, Mr. Minister mentioned in Turkey, there is a huge growth in clean energy. I was yesterday in Istanbul with the Minister of Energy, Mr. Bayraktar. I told him Turkey's move on solar is incredible. It is happening in China, in Thailand, in Vietnam, everywhere. And people are not building solar or wind because to save the planet, mainly. It is because it is economic. And it is for tomorrow. So, therefore, I believe, even though there is a bit weakening interest in climate change, climate policy, I don't think that the clean energy transition will stop. We will, of course, see still significant amount of gas, also some oil, and the others will be used. No question about that. But the clean energy transition will not stop because of the policy changes. Number 3, there is a perception, I will call it misperception, that the energy security and climate change are going in opposite directions. I do not think so. If the energy transitions are designed in the right way, in the smart way, it can help to increase the vulnerability to the energy security shocks. For example, coming back to Turkey again, Turkey is an energy importing country. For each country, the more energy you import, oil and gas, you are more vulnerable to the international energy shocks, international price shocks. So, Turkey, by increasing its renewables, increasing its nuclear power, will reduce its dependence on oil and gas imports, and also as such, the international, what's happening in the international arena on oil, gas, and others. So in my view, the more renewable energy we have, the more energy we produce at home, the more we use energy more efficiently, our energy security will be stronger. Therefore, a well-designed, I underline the well-designed energy policies are a good friend of also addressing the climate change. To finish, dear colleagues, again, as Mr. Minister mentioned, and I am sure my colleagues Muhtar and Selvin will mention as well, in terms of climate change, the imperative to address this issue is growing by day, even though the wind is not blowing in the right direction, but it is up to all of us here to make sure that the wind is blowing in the right direction, if not today, maybe tomorrow, but definitely the day after tomorrow. Thank you very much.
Dr. Bula, I appreciate you addressing a lot of those fears and concerns that the issue of climate has not been in the media as much as it should be, and that the energy transition is still going full steam ahead, because most of the news we get is about how we are not progressing too quickly enough, rather. I'd like to direct this next question to our COP29 President, Mukhtar Babayev. The Baku Initiative for Climate Finance, Investment and Trade, as the Honorable Minister Karim said, aims to mobilize $300 billion annually by 2035 to support developing countries. But given past challenges in meeting climate finance commitments, will the initiative ensure this goal is not only met, but also delivers equitable and effective support to those most vulnerable to climate change?
Thank you. Çok değerli dostlarımız,
Esteemed friends,
hürmetli
dear colleagues,
dostum Murat Bey,
and my dearest
hürmetli
colleague,
Fatih Bey,
Mr.
dear Selvin.
Minister
Birincisi istiyerdim
Krum,
hamımızın
and,
adından,
well, on behalf of
Azerbaycan'ın
everybody,
COP29 takımının adından
on behalf of
size
Azerbaijan
minnettarlığımızı
COP27,
bildirmek,
I'd like to thank you so
teşekkürlerimizi
much. I'd like to extend our
Bu
appreciation
güzel
and
platforma,
gratitude. Thank you so much for
Antalya
inviting
Diplomasi,
us to this great
forum
platform, Antalya Diplomacy
iklim
Forum.
konusuna
I'm
siz
really
ayrıca
glad
bir
that you have
panel
invited us
teşkil
and you
ettiniz
have
ve
established
bu
a
çok
specific panel
büyük
to
bir imkan
climate.
olacaktır ki
This is going to be a
hem
great
iklim
opportunity
diplomasinin devam ettirilmesi için
in order to talk
hem de
about climate diplomacy
regionda,
and
dünyada
in the
giden
region and in the
iklim
world.
konuşmalarının,
There are
iklim
climate
proseslerinin
processes,
hem
climate talks,
müzakeresi hem de
so we can
dünyaya
talk
yeni
about them
mesajların
deeply
verilmesi
and
için
we can also
bildirilmektedir.
declare new messages to the world about these
Şükürler olsun
topics.
ki çok
And thanks
mürekkep
be to
bir
God,
dönem
luckily,
yaşıyor dünya.
the
Ve bu
things could be
mürekkep
good,
dünyada
but in this world,
liderliği göstermek o
we
büyük
have
bir
to show our
cesarettir.
leadership, and it
Ve
takes a big courage
inanırım ki
to
hem de,
show the
Antalya'da
leadership. And I believe that
büyük
in Antalya,
ülkelerin rehberleri,
the
bütün
leaders
müzakerelerde,
of the
burada
countries
bakanların
have come together to
iştirakinden
talk
geçiren
about important
müzakerelerde
topics.
çok maraklı fikirler
And I'm sure
söyleniyor
that
ve
great ideas
çok
will come
maraklı mesajlar
and
ötürülür
important messages
dünya
will be given to the
içtimai.
world.
Ben çok isterdim
Well, I
hususi
wish
minnettarlığımı, teşekkürümü bildirim.
to express
Bey'e,
my personal gratitude to
Fatih Bey'e
Mr. Krum,
ve diğer
Mr. Fatih,
bizim
and
Selvin
Mr.
Hart'a,
Selvin Hart.
bu insanlar
Thank you so much.
Azerbaycan'da
these people
COP29'un geçirilmesi için her tür
Came to
desteğin
Azerbaijan
verilmesini
and they supported
temin
us
ettiler.
in every means
Hem,
for COP29
Murat Bey,
in the best way possible.
Türkiye'de,
Both Mr. Murat
hem
and Türkiye
Türk dilli
delegate
devletlerin
and also Turkic states
platformasında çok
platform.
ciddi mesajların verilmesi ve desteğin verilmesini bize
We
temin
received
etti.
great messages
Fatih
and
Bey,
great support.
ümmeti biz
Mr.
geçen
Fatih,
il boyu bir neçe en büyük tedbirleri biz Beynelhalk Enerji Agentliği'yle beraber geçirdik.
also
Ve
helped
bunun,
us for
en
the
başlangıç
energy
tarihten
issues,
Fatih
and
Bey
since the very
bu
beginning
işi büyük bir,
Mr.
büyük bir
Fatih
işte bize büyük destek gösterdi.
helped us
Selvin
and
Hart,
supported us, and
çok,
Selvin Hart.
prosesin evvelinden Azerbaycan takımına
Prior to
ümumiyyətcə
the
iklim
preparation of
değişmelerinin,
COP29,
müzakere olunmasında,
he helped
iklim
for the negotiations
mühalleşmesinin,
for Azerbaijan.
diyək bir dayanıqlı bir formada onun razılaşdırılmasında büyük rolü olubdu
He
və buna
played
görə
an
də bir
important
də
role
hamımıza
for
çox böyük
Azerbaijan
minnətdarlığımızı
COP29
bildirmək istəyərdim.
agreements, and
İcazə
I'd like to thank you
versəniz,
so much.
mən
And if you allow me,
İngilizcə
I like to
davam
speak in
edeyim.
English
Bu bir uluslararası
since it's an
platformadır.
international platform.
Ve burada COP29 takımı, komandası
COP29
bu yılın
team,
sonuna
COP29
kadar
staff
Brezilya'ya COP30'a,
will do their
COP30
best for
takımına
COP30
bu sədirliyi
Brazilian
təhvil verene kadar biz
journey.
rəhbərlik edirik.
We're going to guide
Ve
them,
elbette ki biz istəyərdik ki
and we of course wanted
Antalya
to
Diplomasi Forumundan da bu mevzular
talk about these
bütün,
issues in Antalya Diplomacy
ülkelere
Forum, and
çatdırılsın ve
it is going to
elbette ki
have
biz
an impact
bunun
on other
müzakeresine
countries
açıq olmağa
so that we could have
hazırıq, açığıq ve bunların müzakere
negotiations with
olmasına
other countries in these
hamını
topics.
dəvət etmek istəyərdim. Dear colleagues, the climate crisis is one of the humanity's greatest challenges. It tests our ability to innovate and collaborate. It challenges us to work in our long-term interests. It demands that we persist despite disappointments. And it calls for courage. Today, the global geopolitical situation is very difficult. We are facing setbacks. And following the first calendar year, 1.5 degrees above pre-industrial levels, there are growing doubts about our future. Facing this new era, I wish to make 2 points about why we can still be optimistic. And then I would like to suggest a way forward. First, in Baku we proved that the system can work. Ahead of COP29, people doubted that the world could agree or that Azerbaijan could deliver. They were wrong on both, and we took many historic steps forward. We agreed the Baku finance goal to mobilize at least $300 billion a year to the developing world by 2035. We finalized the long overdue framework for carbon markets. We got the loss and damage fund up and running. We mobilized asset owners for climate action. We elevated transparency up the agenda, and so much more. Overall, these breakthroughs proved that countries can agree. They demonstrate that the multilateral process can deliver, and they will help unlock trillions of dollars in climate finance for communities around the world. Second, the COP29 presidency still sees a strong commitment to climate action from many countries. In multilateral meeting from Berlin to Tokyo, officials are stepping up to demonstrate their support. They recognize the importance of the COP has delivered. They want to preserve the process. The fact that countries such as Turkey are bidding to host COP31 and make their contribution in evidence that they still see the value of the system. The will to stick together and continue is there. The question now is how do we turn that will into a way forward? What tangible steps must we take next? First, we need to back Brazil. As the host of COP30, we need to follow their leadership. Successful outcomes in these negotiations will be critical indicators that the world is still willing and able to find common ground. But we also need to move beyond negotiations and into implementation. We need to enact the pact we made in Baku. Donor countries need to set out clear plans of how they will contribute their share towards to $300 billion a year. This was a collective commitment. Everyone must make sure it is delivered. This is essential for supporting developing countries and maintaining the integrity of the multilateral system. The COP29 presidency is then working closely with COP30 presidency to draw the Baku to Belém roadmap for how we can scale up climate finance to $1.3 trillion a year for developing countries by 2035. We are receiving inputs from countries and financial stakeholders. And we seek to provide clear and actionable proposals for how everyone can contribute to these collective efforts. Next, we're in a critical year for each country to determine their own individual contribution to climate action. One by one, they must set out their plans to cut emissions, prepare for a warmer world, and underpin everything with full transparency. We understand the difficulty of producing the next generation of the climate plans. Understand it very clear. We have made sure that help is available for everyone who needs it. And we will continue to make the case that these reports are an opportunity, because robust and credible reports can give a green light for green investment. Setting targets and timelines, highlighting priorities, demonstrating government commitment to climate action, and transparent reporting will send strong market signals. These signals will attract and guide capital. Finally, we will continue to advance the initiatives and declarations that we launched at COP29 in Baku. Maintaining an active action agenda will allow us to build coalitions of willing. This will help us make progress on critical issues such as energy storage, trade, agriculture, tourism, water, amongst other key priorities. Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, we understand that these are difficult times, but we will believe there are still many reasons to be optimistic. There are many ways that we can make a difference. I hope that everyone remembers the courage that they demonstrated in Baku at COP29. And we look forward to working with everyone as we continue to move forward in solidarity for a green world. I thank you. Teşekkürler.
Thank you, COP29 President Babayev. Thrown on to Special Advisor Selwyn Hart. You've carried both the voice of the United Nations and the lived reality of an island nation, where the climate crisis isn't theoretical, it's existential. From that dual vantage point, what do you believe the world still needs to understand about climate diplomacy, climate justice, and energy security? And what would a truly just global transition actually look like, from your opinion?
Thank you so much, Regan, and it's a pleasure to be here in Antalya to join this forum. And Minister, thank you so much. Please convey to all of your colleagues at the Foreign Ministry, the Ministry of Environment, please convey my enormous gratitude. And it's also a pleasure to join my two friends, Fatih Birol, Dr. Birol, as well as Minister Babayev. Mukhtar, you know, at moments like this, one needs leaders with steely determination and vision. And you heard in both presentations an honest assessment of where we are, but also the optimism that our world desperately needs at this moment of division and at this moment of enormous challenges. But the reality is, and I will simply summarize everything that they just said, that despite this moment of challenges and division, we're also at a moment of transition and a moment of opportunity. The reality is that despite the geopolitical headwinds that we're currently facing, there are two important realities. The pace of the climate crisis is accelerating at a frightening rate. The World Meteorological Organization recently issued its State of the Climate Report for 2024. And it was frightening in many respects. It shows that on every major indicator of the climate crisis, the pace is accelerating. Displacement of people, sea level rise, temperature rise, extreme heat, loss of glacier ice, exacerbation of water and food insecurity. So whether, no matter what anyone says, we know science is telling us and our lived reality is telling us that the climate crisis is real and it's being felt all over the world. Our friends in Turkey, you are seeing it firsthand. When one looks at 10 indicators, and the World Bank did a study a few years ago where it looked at 10 indicators of climate vulnerability and compared all countries of the OECD against these 10 indicators of climate vulnerability. Agriculture, forestry, and fishery, it looked at these key sectors, extreme heat days, maize yield, population displacement, exposure of the poor, the transport network exposed to climate impact, the share of the population exposed. This list of 10 indicators of not only human well-being, but key planks of your economy. You had the highest vulnerability in 9 of those 10 indicators. 9 out of 10. You know, usually when one sets an exam or a test, 9 out of 10 is a good score. But in this sense, it is not. The World Bank also estimates that a 10% loss in your water supply will amount to $50 billion in losses, or approximately 6% of your GDP. So we're seeing this situation get worse, and it's not only limited to the region that I'm from or the group of countries that I once represented. This is a global phenomenon. And therefore, we have a vested interest in ensuring not only that we act domestically, but that we work across borders and that we strengthen international cooperation and multilateralism despite the headwinds to address this crisis. So that's the first reality. And the second reality, I don't have much to add, but Dr. Burrell said it extremely well. The pace of the energy transition is accelerating, driven primarily by economics and markets. And we believe, and the Secretary General has said this repeatedly, this transition is irreversible, it's inevitable, and it's unstoppable. So we have these 2 really important and critical realities confronting us: a worsening situation on climate, but yet a transition that is accelerating at an unprecedented pace. But when we look at the energy transition, while it has started to pick up in the developing world and among many emerging economies, we need it to go much faster globally, but in particular in developing and emerging economies. Africa, a continent of over 1 billion persons, still has over 600 million persons without access to electricity. 600 million people without access to electricity in 2025. According to Dr. Burrell's agency in his excellent reports, when you look at what has been invested since Paris in clean energy, and I know that some of these stats are probably dated, Dr. Burrell, 4 out of every $5 was invested in China and the advanced economies, and just $1 in the rest of the world. Now that rest of the world is 2/3 of the global population. So this is why we need action on 2 critical fronts this year. First is on finance, and the Baku to Belém roadmap will be an important opportunity for us to demonstrate that, yes, global investments in clean energy and investments in resilience and adaptation are growing, but that they're growing in the places that need it most. On adaptation and resilience to the countries that are most vulnerable, and on the clean energy front, developing and emerging economies that are being left behind in the race to net zero. So the historic agreement, the Baku to Belém roadmap to 1.3 trillion. And we know that the 300 billion is just the starting gun, the ingredients towards the much larger financial flows and investment flows that are needed. We need this roadmap to be delivered in a very credible way. And the leadership of Azerbaijan and Brazil will be key. But we need those countries that have agreed to lead, to truly lead and demonstrate their commitment to provide support to the developing world. And the second and equally important deliverable that we need this year is on the nationally determined contributions, or NDCs. Now, the NDCs are at the heart of the Paris Agreement. They're nationally determined, but they are the clearest and most obvious signal of our progress towards our collective goals under the Paris Agreement. Going into Paris, 10 years ago, the world was headed towards 4 to 5 degrees Celsius of warming. The current batch of NDCs put us at around 2.6 degrees of warming, still catastrophic. So therefore, this round, these new set of NDCs will be a critical signal on the progress that we're making towards the goals of the Paris Agreement. At the previous COP28, countries agreed that these new NDCs should be aligned with the 1.5 degree goal of the Paris Agreement, whole of economy, and that they should cover all greenhouse gases. And we know that most countries are working hard. We know that there was a deadline in February, but the Secretary General personally wrote to about 35 leaders, the G20 and plus a number of other countries. And he really encouraged them not only to present their NDCs, but to focus on robust and ambitious NDCs. These NDCs need to capture that notion of a well-designed transition that Fatih mentioned earlier. We're encouraging countries not to rush and prepare a document that has not been well researched, that doesn't have the good modeling, and that does not have the buy-in of key stakeholders in that country. First of all, the people, but also business, industry, and civil society. Don't rush. Ensure that the consultative process is right and you have the buy-in of all sectors of economy, and that it clearly sends a signal to markets and investors on your commitment to accelerate the clean energy transition, but also how you intend to protect your people, their livelihoods, and your economy from worsening climate impacts. So we're absolutely clear. We're facing these massive headwinds, but we have a number of really important and critical moments and opportunities this year. And what is the UN going to do, and the Secretary General? Believe me, he will continue to fight for all of you, and he will continue to fight for multilateralism. He's working very closely with President Lula of Brazil to engage, convene leaders individually and collectively, really to ensure that we can truly have a moment or moments this year that can provide us collectively with hope, not only that the Paris Agreement goals are still attainable and achievable, but that we're making significant progress. Finally, I've been around for quite a while. I know I look young, but it's our Caribbean genes, Regan. And I've seen the ups and downs of multilateralism and the ups and downs of the climate process, from Copenhagen to Paris and to Cancun. But I've never been more confident, given trends in the global economy, given trends in markets, and the awareness from ordinary people that we can solve this crisis, that we can address this crisis, and that we can pass on to future generations a sustainable and livable planet. But it will require all of us working together, and it will require countries like Turkey. You've historically served as a bridge between North and South, East and West. And we need your leadership, and we need your commitment more than ever. So thank you so much.
Special Advisor, thank you so much for laying out the seriousness of us not responding quickly enough to this. We'll just have one final question to the Honourable Minister, Murat Kurum. We've talked a bit about the Belém to Baku roadmap to COP30, which happens later this year. But finally, to you, this country is aiming to host the COP31 climate summit. What steps is Turkey taking in this process? And why is COP31 such an important milestone?
Evet, çok teşekkür ediyorum.
Thank you very much for your question. And I would like to thank the panelists for their contribution.
Fikirleri, görüşleri, önerileri için ayrı ayrı teşekkür ediyorum.
I would like to thank each and every one of you.
COP31 adaylığı
COP31,
bizim için
I mean, to be a candidate to the COP31 is important to us. In COP29, Azerbaijan, in Azerbaijan, with the leadership of Muhtar Babayev, who is also a friend of mine, was very successful. So I would like to once again congratulate him for the successful leadership. The United Nations, as the Deputy General Secretary of the United Nations mentioned, important decisions were made during the event, especially financial decisions, and also the steps, important steps were taken in terms of adaptation. Right now, we have certain climate energy policies, and as I have mentioned in my speech, with the leadership of our president, even though Turkey does not have this historic responsibility, it has taken a huge step and signed the Paris Agreement. And for the future generations, we have put a goal, it's 2053 goal, and we are taking the necessary steps in that regard. As Mr. Birol mentioned, the security, the energy security issue may come forward, but when we look at the issues, they are all in parallel with each other. And unfortunately, right now, there's an economic war going on, energy war going on in the whole world. Maybe what's more even important than that is the fight against climate change and to take the necessary steps in a sufficient way. So far, that was a problem. This is actually an opportunity, and we have to do this. People have to do this sooner or later. COP31 is an important event in terms of our geopolitical location, and as a leader country in that issue, and also our perspective, an equal, more fairer perspective that we have to this issue. And as a country that has put forward its strategy, we give importance to the leadership of COP31, and we have also announced this to the whole world, and we have received the necessary support. We are expecting the necessary support from the other countries, and hopefully when Turkey will take over COP presidency, just like in Azerbaijan, and just like it will happen in Brazil, hopefully in Turkey also, in
ilgili,
Turkey also,
önemli
there will
kararların
be
alınacağı,
important
hem
decisions
gelişmekte
taken
olan
regarding
ülkelerle
climate
gelişmiş
change.
ülkeler arasında bir köprü oluşturacağı
We
konumundan
would
ötürü
like to
bu,
be a bridge between
kararlarımızı ortaya koyuyoruz.
between the
Tabii,
developing and developed
tarihi
countries.
sorumluluğumuz olmamasına rağmen
As we
de
as we have
adımlarımızı
known,
iklim
even though we do
kanunumuzla,
not
Paris
have an
Anlaşmamızla
historic
taraf olmamızla,
responsibility,
emisyonları azaltım
the fact that we
taahhütümüzle,
are
ulusal katkı
signatories
beyanımızla
to
da
the
vermeye
Paris Agreement
devam
and
ediyoruz.
also the actions that we
İnşallah,
take in that
böyle
regard,
bir talep ve
we
hedefe yola
continue
çıktık.
to show
Bakalım,
our commitment.
değerlendirmeler
We
yapılıyor.
have
2031'e
sent out
ilişkin,
our
karar da alınacaktır.
demand on this.
Hayırlısı olacaktır
I
ülkemiz
hope
için, dünyamız
that
için.
it will be a positive
Adaylığımızı da
answer.
2053
Our
net sıfır emisyonun bir parçası olarak
candidature
değerlendiriyoruz.
is
Böyle görüyoruz.
we assess our
İnşallah,
candidature to this as a part of a zero
bu
waste
başkanlık da
project,
hem
and I
bölgemiz
hope
için hem
that
dünyamız için
this
hayırlı olur
presidency
diyoruz.
would be fruitful to everyone, both in the region and in the country.
And that wraps our climate diplomacy and energy
Evet.
security in the new era panel. We're shortly over time, but thank you so much for your time. Honourable Minister Murat Kurum, thank you so much. Dr. Fatih Birol, COP29 President Mukhtar Babiev, and Special Advisor to the UN Secretary General Salman Hart, thank you so much. One more round of applause, please. And that concludes this panel.
Alışmıştık, oturuyorduk ne güzel.